evening. Conventions are now history. The Republicans last week, this week in North Carolina, the Democrats, the Obama speech tonight, and we are gathered here at our studios in Los Angeles. We have an outstanding panel. Our students are back. We'll set you all up on that. We'll remind you that you will see on your screen little buttons you can hit on the top or on the bottom, and that will enable you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Larry King. I host Larry King Now on Aura TV through Hulu, and we come to you through YouTube tonight. We'll be on following the debates as well, the 4 debates in October, and a major show on election night. Ben Stein returns tonight, the Republican best-selling author. His new book coming out will be titled How to Really Ruin Your Financial Life and Portfolio. Ben worked as a speechwriter for Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford, and he's an outstanding panelist. Leslie Marshall is with us. She is host of the Leslie Marshall Show, which she bills as the only true democracy in talk radio. Rush Limbaugh can't believe that, but she bills it. Also with us is David Begnaud. David will be tracking social media, what's being said and asked about tonight's Democratic Convention session. He will also moderate our panel of current students and recent graduates from UCLA's Department of Political Science. We'll be joined in a little while by Howard Bragman, the vice chairman of Reputations.com, a public relations expert. So let's go at it. Ben, the Obama speech.
I thought it was a pretty good speech. I have a few fairly minor quibbles. I mean, why is he always attacking the oil companies when the oil companies are the ones who found that extra 1 million barrels of oil and all that natural gas that's going to change the energy picture in America? Why is he always attacking corporations generally when they are not really to blame for, except for the ones on Wall Street, they are to blame, when they're generally not to blame. But the main thing that struck me is it's basically a very conservative speech. It was not a radical speech. It was a conservative or moderate speech. He's a patriot. He wants a strong military. He's not talking for socialization of anything. He basically is not giving that different a speech from the speech that a Republican would give. And I've been following these speeches now for a long time, and they're all fairly conservative all the time.
So you're saying he's adopting the Clinton mode?
I think he is moving very much to the middle, yes.
Leslie, what was your appraisal?
Oh, very different. I thought it was a great speech. And I do think that when people are trying to appeal to the masses and tick all the boxes, which I certainly think the president did, when it came to immigration and the Hispanic group, tick. When it came to women and reproductive rights, tick. When it came to women being president, the women got to their feet. I was getting to my feet in the green room. What he needed to do tonight is he needed not only to be the quarterback going into the football game at this pep rally to the choir that he has preached to, but he needed to regain trust and to put back that hope and change that so many in 2008 wanted and many feel disillusioned about. In other words, he needed to bring the prodigal son and daughters home, and I think that he accomplished that tonight with the speech, in ticking all the boxes, in his passion, and in having such a far reach for everyone that was there.
He's going to get a bump?
He's going to get a bump. Yeah.
But I don't see what he called for that is dramatically different. Some things are different, but that is dramatically different from what many Republican presidents have called for. Different, to be sure, from what Paul Ryan and Mr. Romney have called for in many ways, but not very far off the sort of conventional post-war Republican path. And I was struck by the fact that he paid so much attention to the soldiers, a huge omission on the part of Mr. Romney. I mean, I just didn't see the bomb-throwing radical in there at all. Once again, I have no idea why he has such a strong animus against the oil companies. But I saw a moderate guy out there, a good speaker, but a moderate guy. I'm not at all impressed, by the way, by the fact that his wife praised him. I should hope his wife would praise him. I'm not at all impressed by the fact that Mr. Biden praised him. I should hope his vice president would praise him. Of course, Bill Clinton will praise him. But I thought he gave a good speech. I think in many ways it was better than Mr. Clinton's speech last night. It was more specific, and I thought it covered a broader swath of American territory.
It was more specific than the Republicans.
Way more specific, but not specific enough, because he still doesn't have a plan for getting us out of this economic morass we're in. And the sad thing is, neither does Mr. Romney, and neither does anyone else I know.
You are disappointed by all of it, aren't you?
Well, I'm not disappointed by it, Larry, because that's human nature. The world is just way too complex for our poor human brains, and no human being has ever figured out how to get out of a financial morass quite like this. It's just, I don't know that it can be figured out. It just has to be done very, very slowly.
Leslie, are you down?
No, I'm not down. I mean, seriously, if I were Mitt Romney, I'd be down. When you have an economy like this, when you have a president at this point in the game on the other side, our president, Barack Obama, with less than a 50% approval rating, if I were Mitt Romney, I expect 12 to 17 percentage points ahead at a time like this. It isn't. And why is that? Because he's really a bad candidate. I'm not going to say that he ain't no Ronald Reagan. He's not a great candidate. It's almost like, well, he's who we've got. This is a very tight election, so I think it was smart what the president did tonight. The president possessed something that Mitt Romney didn't, and that was humility. And I think that the American people needed to see that. He made it about them. You did this. You did this. He made it about them, and I feel he will get a bump, a larger bump, although, as you know, these bumps are temporary. You know, so in a week or two, we'll see that
Those are all
go
bumps.
away.
Yeah. It's like acne. It goes away.
Thanks.
All right, David Begnaud, what are we learning on the social media track?
Larry, get this. When the president was talking tonight, 36,000 tweets per minute mentioning the president. On your Twitter account, Larry, you asked, tell me what you think of the president's speech in about 5 or 6 words. From Brandon, he writes, at King's Things, inspiring hope 4 more years. Chris weighing in, passionate, sincere, determined, auto lover, grateful. Jason weighing in, wussification of America personified, literally, not a big fan. Milo saying King's Things, telling lies to win again. Also, limited edition writing in, Democrats are voting for Obama because they love him. Republicans are voting for Romney because they hate Obama. Big difference. Let's go over to one of the students now. This is a recent graduate, Laura Watson from UCLA, political science. Economics is important to you. What's your question for our panel?
My question is do you really think the theory of trickle-down economics works?
I don't think either party is proposing trickle-down economics. The Democrats say that the Republican platform is trickle-down, but it isn't. Supply side is not trickle-down.
What is the difference?
Well, supply side, trickle-down would say if you make the rich richer, that will make they will invest or they'll spend more or something like that. The supply side says if you cut taxes, generally everyone will work harder and be more productive. So that's a difference.
Well, in my opinion, I mean, the proof is there. When you had over a decade of the Bush tax cuts extended to the wealthy, we wouldn't be in the predicament that we are in. How come we have the unemployment rate? Where are the jobs? How come the money went overseas to buy Turkish bonds and wasn't put into the American economy? And Reagan's administration showed that in the first 4 years, trickle-down appeared to work, but in the second 4 years, it clearly didn't.
Leslie, with the greatest possible respect, even the president's most devoted Democrat, liberal, Harvard, economic advisors do not say that tax cuts cause this recession. Absolutely.
No, I didn't say that. What I said is if the idea is that you give the rich more money so that they will create jobs and they will stimulate the economy, they didn't.
But that isn't what supply side is about, and that isn't what caused the recession. The recession was caused by a series of catastrophic mistakes on Wall Street and in the government supervision of Wall Street. And
what about fighting wars and cutting taxes?
Well, but that was a questionable idea. But let's remember where we were. We were in the midst of a terrible market meltdown. We were in the midst of a recession. We were in the midst of national trauma over the bombing of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. People were in a very bad mood. Question, how do you stimulate the economy? Well, I mean, the tax cuts were a possible idea. To have continued them so long and to have made them so heavily concentrated at the high end was clearly a mistake. But the idea that caused the recession, I understand you didn't say it. The idea that caused the recession is just a non-starter. But once it's caused, and by the way, there's a brilliant, super documentary about that called Inside Job. But there's once it's caused, it's unbelievably hard to stop.
Leslie, the Democrats are saying they're doing better by saying they've improved a bit over what they inherited from Bush. Is that going to work? Do you think the public feels
I think sometimes, you know, that KISS, keep it simple, stupid kind of thing, I think it is relevant. I think Americans need to say, and you know, Republicans pose the question, are you better off? Democrats pose the question. Americans need to search themselves and answer that, because sometimes we like to, and I know Americans get mad at me for saying this and think that I'm demonizing them, but sometimes we love to play the victim and we get wrapped up in that, you know, having a pity party for ourselves. But we need to really look. I had to ask that of myself, seriously, even though I am voting for the president in November. Am I better off now today? And then when we look at different things, just this past week alone, the auto industry, when we just look at the growth, albeit slowly, we are headed in the right direction.
All right, let's bring in another panelist from Florida, our good friend Howard Bragman. He's the vice chairman of Reputation.com. He's a public relations expert. He was with us for our Republican coverage. He was with us here in L.A. What are you doing in Florida, Howard?
I'm visiting the folks, Larry, at the kibbutz, you know.
All right, how do you rate Obama tonight?
Well, you can't take his speech in isolation. As a speech in isolation, it was a A-, B+, depending on how you feel about the president. But you have to look at it the culmination of 3 days. And his job was not to give the speech of a lifetime. His job was to close the sale. And on that measure, I think he did a very good job. He laid out very clear differences. And the truth is, and I think Ben would agree with me, there are very clear differences in their candidates and their vision of the world. And the president talked about those differences in great detail. He got impassioned at the end. He said, "We're in this together." I think he acquitted himself very, very well, Larry, and I think he's going to get a significant bump. And I want to say, from an overall viewing point of view, you just can't compare the energy of the Democratic convention to the Republican convention. The Republican convention had a couple decent moments. I think Ann Romney was good. I think Mitt Romney's speech was flat, as most of us agreed last week. This was just such a beautifully produced show, as a guy who produces things for a living. And, you know, the Democrats have some advantages. Number one, they can clear a lot of music. You know, Republicans have, you know, Hank Williams Jr., you know, saying Obama's a Muslim. The Democrats have every musical artist they ever wanted. And I think they're going to get a 2 to 4 point bounce out of this.
What are they saying over there now? Well, stay with us, Howard. You're going to be with us all the way.
Okay.
Larry, we're still getting so much response to your Twitter question. What's great about social media is that as people are watching it tonight online or on television, they're sitting at their computer and tweeting. Actress Vivica Fox saying President Obama just got that it factor, just blessed and touched by God. Vote tweets, don't sleep. In real time, The Fix writing, Obama working in some humor here, smart to try and avoid being too gloomy about the State of the Union. Conservative Monica Crowley tweeting 4 more years of this, #help. And Colsey saying, hey, oh, bummer, tell your cult followers where you're going to get the dough. Of course, talking about the plans he wants to have.
What's the impact of social media, Leslie?
Oh, it's huge.
Thousands.
It's huge, and it's funny because
By
Monica...
the way, you can tweet us with your questions at Aura Politics with #Aura2012.
Monica Crowley was on my radio show last night, and we're very good friends, and we were battling it out, so I'm sure she's doing that. Thanks, Mom.
What's the impact of the tweets?
It's huge, because you're reaching a segment of the population that people have forgotten, that President Obama really reached out to, and they're sitting in this room. And that is the next generation and the youth. He did it in 2008, and this is the future, Larry. I mean, it's the present right now, but it's also the future. So it's incredible, because how many people, since Larry asked me that question, have been responding to what we're talking about, to what happened at the convention?
We've got over 500. We've got more than 1,000, Larry, just related to your question. On your Facebook page, we've got... Boy, here's my question for Ben especially. Larry, you've got a Twitter account. You do, Leslie, as well. You, Mr. Stein, do not. Why not?
I don't want people knowing where I'm going.
Well, he's stuck in that, what is it, Hank Williams?
But do you see the benefit of it?
Muslim kind of...
Do you see the benefit of it?
I'm sorry?
Do you see the benefit of social media, Twitter, Facebook?
If it's a benefit to the people who use it, it's fine. But it has no interest for me whatsoever. But last night we were talking about social media, and you were pointing out that Mr. Obama's convention got enormously more tweets, enormously more than Republicans. And I was saying, but interestingly enough, they're tied. Obama and Romney are tied. So obviously the tweets don't really represent that much.
Howard, what's your thought as a public relations expert on Tweeterville?
You know, it's hugely important, and probably the most significant moment in the convention in terms of social media to me of both conventions was Paul Ryan's speech. It seemed to go off well. It was received well in the room. But if you were on social media the next day, people were tearing him apart, and people like the Wall Street Journal, people like Fox News were calling Ryan's speech deceitful. you know you have trouble, and that stuff was going viral. And social media, to me, equals ground game.
So why are the polls got them, as Ben pointed out, even?
I think it's pretty impressive for a president with this kind of economy and this kind of unemployment to be even right now, frankly, and with this disadvantage with money.
Well, wait, and he doesn't. That's a myth about the disadvantage with money. If you look just at the campaigns, the Bush,
But you can't look at just the campaigns,
The Republican
Ben.
campaign has raised more. But if you look at the whole Democratic panoply of options, including unions, they've raised far more than the whole Romney panoply of options. Far, far, far more. That isn't even close.
You're the first person I've heard say that.
It's been reported over and over again.
There's more being spent.
If you take all the Democrat sources of funds, compare them with the Republicans, arithmetic, do the arithmetic.
You got a guy, one guy's given $100 million.
He said he would give it. He hasn't given it. $100 million is not a lot. Let's remember in the last election, Mr. Obama spent 7 times as much as Senator McCain. 7 times as much, and McCain did not lose by that much in the popular vote. So the contributions don't matter that much as long as they're at a high enough level anyway. But it just is a myth that's been dashed by the Wall Street Journal over and over again on the editorial page that Obama is being outraised financially.
One of our students.
Larry, this is Sophia. She's a recent graduate of UCLA. And Sophia, you told me a moment ago you don't agree with what some of Ben Stein is saying. What's your comment?
Well, I just wanted to say Twitter is really, really important, and for us as youth, being able to have some talking points based off of this DNC is really, really important. And just to tell you my personal testimony, I've been getting really excited because of this DNC, and now I have a lot more talking points to go off because of Twitter and the 28,000 tweets a minute that have happened because of Barack Obama's speech. Talking points that I did not have prior to this DNC.
Very good.
And that can educate you as a voter or inspire you to vote.
Well, you could read things in the newspaper that would inspire you to vote or educate you.
That's so 20 years ago, Ben.
All of these guys are reading the paper online.
Well, I don't read it online. I read it holding it up in front of me as I'm eating English muffins, and I still learn a lot. So.
Why no balloons?
Oh, my understanding was when the venue was changed from outside due to the thunder showers, not because they didn't have enough people to fill the 74,000-seat outdoor stadium, as some Republicans said, but because of the thunderstorms, and they moved inside to approximately 22,000 people, they didn't let the balloons go because they were set for balloons for 74,000 people. So if you can imagine how many balloons that would be, A, and B, I believe the transport, because up until the last minute when they knew Mother Nature wasn't going to comply, they were planning to do it outside.
When, guys, do we get, Ben? In Britain, the election is, what, a month, 2 months it takes, right?
I think at the most.
All right. This is like forever.
Yeah, it's forever.
What percent of America is undecided? What, 4%, 3%?
I think it's a little more than that, but not much more.
6%.
So,
last
oh, that's more.
Why do we need all this for another 2 months?
Because why do we need all this?
I mean, money
because it
spent.
provides a lot of employment for an awful lot of people like you and me. I mean, that's why it provides employment.
So it's capitalism at it. That's why we have.
It gives us something to do.
There's something for us. I don't get paid, so it doesn't really provide employment for me, but it provides amusement and entertainment for people. I mean, it's fine with me if they want to shorten the time period, but because it's a very, very big country, there are a lot of people to go meet and talk to. I don't see any problem in having the campaign take a long time. These guys are very energetic. They've got the youth and the energy to do it. I couldn't do it, but they can do it.
And you have to remember, I mean, with a race this close, this is very close. 6%, 1%, that really matters. And Mitt Romney took a long time to get all the delegates because, a lot of Republicans were dragged
with
to
the
vote for him.
Electoral College set up the way it is, you're a Republican in California, your vote is meaningless.
I agree.
Democrat in Utah, forget. Right?
Right.
Republican in New York, forget.
Right.
Democrat in Texas,
forget about it.
So why do we have a popular vote?
Because it's the Constitution. The Constitution said that.
That again.
People, incredibly brilliant, wonderful people created the Constitution, and to try to tamper with it is a very dangerous idea. And by the way, I don't think I didn't hear your crack about me being banked there with Hank Williams Jr. calling Obama a Muslim. I don't think for a minute he's a Muslim. If he said he was a Muslim,
No, I was talking about being stuck in that Republican,
that's not a Republican.
That's
not a Republican point of view, and to say it is extremely unfortunate.
We're going to bring back a gentleman we had with us last night, and we'll get to the student in a moment. John Zogby is with us. Ben, you'll be happy. You like John.
I love him.
He is the founder and senior analyst of the famed Zogby poll. All right, first, what was your read about tonight, John?
Well, I think in terms of rallying the base, it was a great night for the Democrats. One good speech after another. That even included, the Hollywood stars that were out there, Mary J. Blige as well. But, John Kerry hit the right notes for these delegates. The vice president was pitch perfect tonight. The president, Larry, you asked me last night, can the president do as well as Bill Clinton? And I said, no, last night. Tonight, he did what he needed to do, but just for the delegates, basically.
All right. The polling, were there any polling today about the God in Jerusalem that occurred yesterday at the Democratic convention?
No, not yet. That's too soon. The most that any of the daily tracking polls would be able to do is get, a 1 day's read, and they wouldn't publish a 1 day's read on anything like that. We're going to have to wait for 2 or 3 days to get a sizable enough sample.
Someone mentioned this. Does Obama have a faith gap?
Well, I think that the Democrats and the Republicans are a faith gap. I mean, let's look at the demographics. It's not to say that the Democrats are not Christian or the Democrats are not spiritual in any way, but they're clearly a much more secular party than where the Republicans are today. So in that sense, a more fundamentally secular party versus a more evangelical party, yeah, that's a faith gap.
John, there's something puzzling in this, and this is a classic example the panel can jump into. Real Clear Politics, which averages together right track and wrong track polls. The latest results show about 62% of Americans believe the nation is heading in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. Why is this close?
That is the fundamental question, Larry, and I think mainly the fundamental answer is that voters either don't know Mitt Romney yet or is a flawed candidate because he's been out there for a while. In fact, he hasn't closed the deal among a significant number of the base within the Republican Party. Still have 15–16% of evangelicals who are Republican saying they're not decided. And frankly, Larry, 1/3 of those undecided evangelicals say they'll never vote for a Mormon. Now, I'm not sure what never means, but that's as of a couple of weeks ago.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Ben has a question. John, stay with us. Ben?
Yeah.
What percent of the electorate in the presidential campaign is African American?
Normally about 10%. It hit 11% last time in 2008. I suspect because of the polling numbers today, 94-2 for Obama, very few undecided African Americans. You're going to have 11% again.
What would be the results of this presidential election if the votes of the African American community were split evenly?
Well, essentially, let's figure there are 12 or 13 million African Americans, and add 6 million on to, the Republican side. I mean, basically, you're talking about
it would be a landslide for
Republican,
Romney.
A Republican lead, yeah.
Well, what was the point of that?
Yeah, it's not
the point is, to his point, to Mr. Zogby's point earlier about why is it that Mr. Obama is able to maintain such a strong position in the face of I should say not deteriorating, but weak economy. He has one incredibly devoted voting bloc that's a very large bloc that is voting for him. I forget whether he said 94-2 or 96-2. So that is incredibly helpful to him. That's unbelievably helpful to him.
Leslie, why do you think it's so close?
Well, the economy, is not what the Americans want. Well, first of all, we have high unemployment still. And
why isn't it a runaway for Romney?
Oh, I agree with some of what John said. First of all, what I have to say from the talk radio listeners that call into my show, and even though I'm a liberal and progressive, I'm a Democrat, it's about split as to conservative and progressive audience. And they feel that Mitt Romney has this elitist, look down his nose attitude at people. There's that disconnect. They don't like him. And when it's this close, it may come down to who they like because they don't necessarily trust what he will do because they can't relate to him, and they don't necessarily trust him And he doesn't have a specific plan. I do agree with Ben on that with regard to the future and the economy and job creation.
Well, and I mean, there's no getting away from it. I mean, look at him. Look at Mr. Obama tonight, and then look at Romney. I mean, there's no comparison in terms of personal magnetism. It's night and day. There's no comparison. It's absolutely
and that
and remember, yes, remember
tremendously.
Remember when George Bush in 3 debates, George W. Bush and John Kerry. John Kerry in all the polls kicked his butt. He knew his stuff. And at the end of the day, who won? John Kerry. Who are you going to vote for? George Bush. Why? Because he seems like somebody I'd like to have a beer with.
Kennedy Nixon. If you heard the Kennedy Nixon debate on the radio, it was a tie.
Right. Everything is high school. Everything is high school. And it's high school again. Who's the coolest guy? And who's the coolest guy? Obama is a very cool guy. I mean, he spent his whole life making himself a cool guy. Romney spent his whole life making himself a rich guy. That means Romney has a great deal of money, but it doesn't mean he's going to win the election.
Howard, stay with us, John, and I'll go right to our student in a minute. Howard, I want to ask you, we didn't bring this up the last time, but you are an openly gay American. So you don't come to this objectively, do you? Would you say that 90% of American gays are going to vote Democrat?
It's actually a slightly smaller number than that, and I think John will know the number, but I think it's probably closer to 80%. I sometimes get confused as to why 20% of gays would vote for people who don't want us to have marriage and civil rights and the advantages that go with that.
Can you bring an objective analysis to this as a professional in public relations?
I do, Larry. You know, you've known me for a decade, and I've been on many of your shows many, many times. It's because I believe I am objective. I think I understand very clearly what's going on. I understand the failures of this administration. They're making up a lot of ground. When Obama was selling his health care plan, I thought they did a horrible job. And it's only now that they're cleaning up the mess that they made of selling this to the American people. So, yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with my objectivity.
John, do you poll gay Americans?
Yes, we do. We haven't this cycle per se, but, you know, we have a significant enough subset of gays. And, you know, the fundamental answer to that question is that not all gays identify themselves as gay number one. There are other identities they have that could be, you know, as a veteran, as a union member, and so on. So that's why, you know, there are some who may, you know, be members of the NRA, for example, and identify with other conservative issues. But Howard is right. It's about 3/4 to 80%.
Howard, we have a student. Stay with us, John and Howard.
Larry, before we get to that, we just got word that Twitter's telling us that Barack Obama set a political record tonight on Twitter. 52,000 tweets per minute, over 9 million tweets for the DNC. And we actually just got a tweet in from Jacob for you and your panel. This is the question: will debates decide the election, or will it remain this close to November?
Good question. Let's get everybody on that. The debates, Leslie.
I think the debates are going to make a difference, because that's when, you know, this isn't preaching to the choir. This is direct responses to attacks that are made on one another, on one another's record. Mitt Romney is not going to be able to hide about what he did in Massachusetts. The president is not going to be able to pretend that unemployment isn't what it is, and that the stimulus did not work the way that he wanted it to.
It's going to matter big
Absolutely.
time. Ben?
I think it'll matter a lot, too. But I mean, I've said for months now, I think the election is in the bag for Mr. Obama. But I think if
You're
Mr.
a Republican conservative.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to tell the truth here. I mean, all right, never mind. I think Romney's going to win.
No, I want you to be.
Why do you think it's in the bag? I like that you're being honest.
What if Romney betters him in the debate?
If he does really, really well in the debates, it definitely could turn the other way. But as I've said, Mr. Obama has a giant bloc that will vote 100% for him. Now I didn't realize this about the gay voters, but Mr. Zogby has enlightened me that he has another giant bloc that will vote almost 100% for him. So and he has an enormous advantage in likability. So he's doing great.
And Hispanics and women.
John, what are the debates matter?
Some women.
John?
Yeah, I think that this stays close. And, you know, let's think back to 2000. You know, the debates did matter. And after each debate, Gore would go up to 3 or 4 point lead, and then a few days later, Bush would go up to a 3 or 4 point lead. And look at what happened at the very end. But barring anything unforeseen, some sort of global calamity, the debates are really going to help determine which candidate goes over the top.
Howard, what's your view of the debates?
Well, absolutely, but I have an opinion that I think Ben might like, and that is usually in the first debate, the challenger often does better because the expectations are lower for Mitt Romney in this case. So you may be surprised, but what I think is going to be really interesting is the foreign policy debate. And I don't know who else noticed it, but for the first time, the Obama campaign and Obama himself started the messaging about untested leadership, making fun of his gaffe in Britain during the Olympics. That's something that we haven't heard much before from the administration, from the DNC, and I think that's where Obama could really clean his clock in the debate.
If memory serves me right, Sarah Palin did very well in the vice presidential debate. The expectations were low for her.
Killer. She was a
and
killer.
She was very good.
She did very well.
Yeah.
Her speech at the convention was one of the best speeches I've ever heard. But speaking of foreign policy issues, I don't know if anyone noticed the deafening silence at the convention when President Obama said he wasn't going to let Iran get nuclear weapons. No applause, no cheers, dead silence.
What do you make of that?
I don't think these people dislike Iran that much.